So in my last video, I showed you how I like to use my physical bullet journal. And I think when you have a physical planner, notebook, bullet journal, etc., what have you, it gives off the impression that you plan or do things only on analog, which cannot be further from the truth, at least in my experience. So in this video, I will give you a rundown of my digital workflow, including the digital apps that I use that supports my physical bullet journal. So here's a snapshot of my entire workflow. I know it seems like a lot, I promise it's not. I will try my best to simplify it for you. I have placed color codes by app and included a few legends so that you understand better. There are several ways to start or begin this workflow, and that is symbolized with a flag. It simply means that these tools are used to capture, and which tool I use specifically depends on what item that is. If that's an event, a task, or an appointment, what device I'm using. So I have my MacBook Air, my iPhone, and my Windows work laptop, and what aspect of my life they fall under. A location pin means it can be a destination for some items because it's actionable on it or can be ticked off on it. And lastly, a computer screen icon, which means I use it as a control center or dashboard. Let's start up top with Spark, which is my email client on my MacBook Air and my iPhone. My criteria for an email client is simple. I want to be able to view all my inboxes at one glance and then separately. I want to be able to alternate sending as between multiple emails, including my aliases that I do have, and at the same time alternate between multiple signatures with ease. Next is have calendar within the email so that I can make use of the first few criteria that I mentioned when sending a calendar invite. And with sending a calendar invite, I need that calendar to be able to integrate with video conferencing tools, specifically Zoom. So what I do have on my Spark app is my personal Gmail and my listgirl.co email. One of the biggest cherry on top for me here is that I can transfer mails from one inbox to another with just drag and drop. I'm literally not missing any emails that come my way, and at the same time, I'm able to organize them as I go with ease. Next up is Fantastical, which is my calendar app. This is where items could be printed in, die in, and I also use that as a dashboard. At the same time, I could enter both events and tasks within the app. So literally anything is possible. I love it. I just love it. This is my favorite. Let's start with events. When you're in Google Calendar, you'd have to sign in and out of an account in order to switch from one calendar to another. I don't want to have to do that. Of course, there is a way to subscribe or follow another Google Calendar, but what I don't like about that is whichever account you're using, you treat its calendar as primary. And at the same time, when you do subscribe to an iCalendar, it places its calendar as read-only. So there's no way for you to overwrite anything within the app, within Google Calendar. This would prompt you to switch apps, which is super inefficient. All of this is addressed within Fantastical. Fantastical is not just brand agnostic, it's also email account agnostic. So I treat all calendars as equal, and I could be on just one platform navigating through different calendars. I have 2 email accounts dedicated for events, G Suite for ListGirl, and iCloud or iCal for personal use. Under G Suite, I have 2 calendars, namely ListGirl and Mostery PH, but I've since ended my contract with them in December, so I only use one now. Under iCal, I have personal and Beauty and Company calendar. Beauty and Company are my pets, so I share this with my fiancé since we treat them as conjugal pets. Having multiple calendars within a single account is super handy because I get to assign a color per calendar and not just per email account. This helps me identify which category an event falls under at a glance. Fantastical adopts the color coding system that I have set in place, which makes everything a breeze. Moving on to tasks, I have to-do-lists for this. I have about 5 projects plus inbox on the free version, and all projects but one are synced onto Fantastical. They're color-coded based on the task list they fall under, which is similar to the color coding system that I have for events, so I don't get very confused. They can also be ticked off from within Fantastical, which is unheard of in a lot of calendar apps. I mean, sure, you can do that within Google Calendar, but this takes it a notch higher because you can assign or make it due at a certain hour. I don't think you can do that with Google Calendar. My default or catch-all task list is the inbox. I have a widget for quick capture on my phone's home screen since I need it accessible on the go. Another is a personal task list for personal errands, bills to pay, tasks, etc. Third is for list girl for any list girl related tasks. And then there's a grocery list. It's shared with my fiancé since our consensus is whoever beats the other to going to the supermarket buys for the both of us. I try to access all of this within Fantastical, so I keep one dashboard for everything, except maybe for the grocery list because I like to refer to it as I go while I'm in the supermarket. Most tasks gets migrated onto my bullet journal during daily logs, weekly spreads, monthly migration. So basically a future log is rendered useless in my bullet journal because of this, plus it keeps it tidy. So what happens to items that go into my to-do-list inbox? They could go 4 ways. Notion inbox, my budgeting spreadsheet, content calendar within Notion, and my bullet journal. Technically, they could still go to my personal or list girl to-do-list projects, but when I enter tasks, I usually already know where they fall under, so they skip the to-do-list inbox 90% of the time. But if I'm really in a hurry, then that's still an option. So as far as what goes where, here's what happens. Any notes go to my Notion inbox to be filtered among notes for my processed thoughts, journal for my diary or anything that has to do with my emotions, draft for any literary materials that I have written, prompts or just self-explanatory, reference for materials that I want to save and process later on. Drafts and references can be made into a series or content, so I have a relation field to funnel that into the series database and content calendar. Sometimes the series can be broken down into several contents, and other times I can think of content off the bat, so that goes straight into the content calendar, skipping several levels. Moving on to my finances, I have been using Wallet by Budget Bakers for around maybe 4 or 5 years now. So I use it for logging expenses and at the same time importing data that I have from there onto my personal finance Google spreadsheet, which I use for budgeting at the start of the month and at the same time comparing my actual spending by the end of the month. So how this plays into my entire workflow is that, for example, I have a wish list item, maybe off the top of my head from Shopee, Lazada, or social media. I enter that into my to-do-list inbox, and then I transfer that from my to-do-list inbox into my personal finance spreadsheet so that it can be included in the budget for a particular month. This way, it can save me from doing impulse buys or any spontaneous spending. So that is it for my digital setup for my personal organization system. I keep an almost completely separate workflow for my day job for two purposes: security compliance and work and life balance. And for the same reasons, I will not be sharing my workflow and the tools that I use for work. But I hope it's been helpful what I've shared so far. If you're not a bullet journal person, you're not into physical planners or analog systems, you could totally replicate this and it could stand on its own. I know when you take a glance at the workflow, it might seem like a lot. It took me a while, even a long time, to be able to create or design a system that really works for me instead of working to fit how I work onto a pre-made system or a rigid productivity app or tool. So now that I've been using this system for quite a while now, it's almost second nature to me. It allows me to offload everything in my brain without worrying that they might fall through the cracks or get lost. And so really the only thing that I keep in my head now is how the wheels work in my system. I wish the same for you, and I hope you find the system that works for your lifestyle and the things and aspects in your life. Bye-bye. Okay.